please introduce yourself.
Yes.
Who are you?
Of course. I'm Neil Mclean. I'm a sort of builder of robots, animator, director, editor, music maker person.
So you're kind of a jack of all trades in the digital media field. So how would you specifically describe the jobs that you do?
Mostly music videos and mostly animated these days. But I also have been working on a comedy show for a few years that I'm hoping to get into production and sell and be able to, just solely do that at some point. But I love making music videos, so it's definitely a good thing to fill in the time while the other thing slowly gestates.
What is your education level, and what do you think is the minimum education level for the field that you are currently in?
That you could get, a 2-1 I think I have in media studies, or media and professional studies it was called, from Liverpool John Moores University in 1998, so it's a long time ago, but I think that's what I got. There we learnt digital editing as we passed off from the jog machines of old into the invention of Avid, which was brought in by a professional Avid editor who spent a week or so with us and taught us how to use that. And then by the time I graduated, we managed to get a loan to buy an Apple Mac, and by then Final Cut Pro had just come out. So I say we, I had a business partner at the time. We had a company called Good Times Moving Images Limited, and under that brand we would make the music videos and co-direct them. So if you go back long enough in my career, I was making stuff with other people, but round about now I tend to just do everything myself and then get friends in to help cut stuff out with paper, because I do a lot of tactile, analog kind of stuff with real objects.
Did you actively choose to be in the field that you did end up in eventually?
I think I wound up in it by unfolding events. When I graduated, I probably spent a year working in pizza restaurants, just trying to make rent and not really knowing what I was going to do. A friend of mine that graduated the same year, both of us, mind you, were in bands. He called me, I think I was at my parents', and he called me at my parents and said, "Do you want to start a company making music videos?" And I said, "Yes, let's do it." And so it was his idea and we ran with it. And because we were in bands, we had a rehearsal studio downtown in Liverpool. And so we'd play music at night, and then in the day we'd have our Apple Mac with Final Cut Pro on it. And there were so many other bands in that building because it was a rehearsal space, and a lot of them were up and coming, like bands that maybe aren't heard of so much in America but did very well in England, like the Zootons and the Coral, and I think Lady Tron were in there for a while. We were using the space for lots of different things, and also we had other friends that were in bands that would use it. Can I use your space for the night, and the amps and whatnot. But that was just a great way of bumping into all the other local bands that were up and coming, and then we were the only kids in town that were making music videos. So that way we kind of got all the work, and then that caught the eye of the labels in London that some of these bands went on to become successful enough to sign to, and then that sort of created a snowball effect where bands would call Sony and go, "Who made that last video for da-da-da? I like it." And Sony would go, "Well, actually, it's these guys. Let's hook you up." And so our work would create more work if it did well,
So Sony was the biggest company you have ever worked for, or have you worked for bigger companies in the past, specifically in that field of editing?
I think I bring up Sony because I work with them so often, because sometimes when you get a synergy with a band, they'll keep coming back to you and they're on the same label. So they're like the Coral, for instance, and the Zootons, I think, were both signed to Sony through an indie that we'd come to know called Delta Sonic, who sort of Sony bought out, I think, a certain percentage of this Liverpool label because they like these bands. And but yeah, I mentioned Sony for that reason only, but I worked for Virgin and Mercury and I think Polydor, Columbia, I'm not sure, like many different labels and many different bands, but some of them, like we really got on with and almost created an aesthetic together. So that would mean, you know, they would keep coming back to you.
Is there a specific project that you worked on that kicked off your career as a music video editor?
We made one for this band called Mint Royale, who were a sort of sample band for a label called Faith and Hope in Manchester. And we lied and said we had a showreel. And we didn't have a showreel. And I think I may have even shoplifted the VHS cassettes that we put our showreel on, and we made clips of all stuff that we'd made personally and pretended they were music videos and cut this. And we were so broke we couldn't afford a VHS to drop it on. I remember stealing 3 VHS from Tesco's supermarket. Yeah, we basically said, they said, send us a showreel, because our friend was dating the secretary at the record label and was like, I know guys that have cameras. And so we cut a fake showreel together, and they bought that it was a real showreel. And it was stuff that you or I might just shoot out and about, experiments and little bits and bobs, and because it was all, we compiled it together because we needed to. Then they believed, oh, they must be legitimate directors, which we'd never directed a music video before, apart from ones I'd made for my own band for fun, like. And so that, but then the wheels stopped turning, and like stuff got difficult financially, and like so that was like, wow, we haven't worked for a long time. But then the Alan Wills thing that I started this answer with, he trusted us. We pulled out a decent video, and then he kept using us because we'd been kind of agreeable, you know, like, yes, we can do it, even though we didn't know if we could. You know, you just gotta say yes and cross your fingers.
Did you ever manage to, like, you would always manage to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there weren't always good videos. Like, I've made some turkeys for sure. I've made videos where the label have come back and hired us again to remake it. There was Delta Sonic, and then there was Sony. Delta Sonic was like, yeah, make something grungy and punky with blood, and then Sony were like, remake it. But they came back to us, and then they didn't like that one, and then somebody else remade that one.
How long by yourself does it tend to take to finish one of these projects?
Months. Like, I think the Coral one with the robots took me about 6 months, but at the same time I was working on other jobs. So because they understood the complexity of the technique, they were cool with me taking my time, because I pretty much said, and I think it ended up being, they asked me to do a certain song, but I had an affinity for this particular song of the 3 they sent me. And I think the way we figured it out was, well, I want to do this one. If you make that the 3rd single off the record, that will give me time to make it by the time you're putting out bap of your other singles. Something like that happened, I think, there.
Do you feel your line of work is respected within the higher, like,
I think I kind of got 2 answers for that. One thing I've found is that people have no idea how long stuff takes and think that they can ask for the impossible overnight. That happens a lot, but like that tends to be the artists, the musicians that I'm working with, or the labels that aren't animators, and why should they know? But when they've come to me because of work they like that I've done in the past, they sort of have to just deal with the fact that I'm a sort of cottage industry, I suppose, in a way. It's like a small mom and pop kind of operation. So that's what they're going in for.
Do you have any specific people that inspire your work?
Oh, definitely. There's a guy called Karel Zeman, who's an animator, or was an animator. Ladislav Sterovic, Lotte Reiniger, and for somebody that's currently working in the industry, Lindsay Berkebiel, which I think is how you say her name, who is a Robot Chicken's liquid specialist. If somebody's bleeding or vomits, they bring her in because she's great at animating liquid, and she's just finished up working with Henry Selick in Portland on Wendell and Wild, which is the new thing from the guy that did Nightmare Before Christmas. In this particular field, people are so willing to share. It's not like anybody is going, mine. I'm not going to tell you how I did that. People are very generous with sharing their techniques.
I just need to prove that we were in the same room. This is the proof. Hi.
Hi, yeah. I'm not CG. I can't do it.
Yeah. If like my hand doesn't go through.
I'm not Blender.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.